Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. In a moment, you'll be able to see our good buddy Mitch Fick. Mitch is with CBS 2, Fox 28, that's KFXA, and KGAN. Mitch, news anchor and sports guy there. Both stations carry this Hawkeye show, as well as Des Moines Fox 17 and Sioux City CBS 14, and Southern Iowa KTVO CBS. So we got the whole state covered for you, all our Sinclair properties. Mitch, you had a press availability today with the coordinators. Of course, it's a bye week after last week's big Minnesota victory over Minnesota, 31-14 in Minnesota. Hawks have a bye week before going to Ohio State. CBS, one of your stations, national television, 2:30 kick on next Saturday, October 5th, against right now the number 3 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes as we record this on Tuesday, September 24th, Tuesday afternoon. So, Mitch, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. And how'd everything go today?
Yeah, great to see you, Dave, and great to get out of Minneapolis, certainly with a win and an impressive win again. Kaleb Johnson through 4 games. We hear whispers of 2008 all over again. And so a lot of questions as we talked to Tim Lester and Phil Parker and LeVar Woods today at those bye week coordinator pressers. A lot of questions for Tim just about what Kaleb's been able to do. And, what else can you say, really? I mean, he's just a heck of an athlete and has been running behind a really experienced, really talented offensive line that's hitting stride. So many guys have started for 2, 3, 4 years in some cases on that O-line. And so you just got this perfect meeting of experience and talent and everything coming together. And that's how you get the 11th ranked rushing attack in the nation through 4 weeks. A lot of questions, though, about the passing game, which is ranked 122nd right now. And Cade McNamara hasn't thrown a pick in 2 games, but he also hasn't thrown a touchdown since the opener there in the 4th quarter against Illinois State. So some questions about what he's brought to the table. Is that what Tim's looking for? The communication between them and everything like that. He actually said, just, if you throw out the stats, they are what they are. He thought Cade's best game of the season in terms of mechanics, timing, and his footwork specifically was Saturday in Minneapolis. I would tend to agree. There were a couple of plays that were just, it's not like they're just flailing out there, right? I mean, there are plays out there that are millimeters away from being big things, and it's just, a route not run crisp, or a ball delivered maybe just a bit too early or a bit too late, maybe because of those routes, or a pass protection thing breaks down. He hasn't been sacked a lot, but he's been sacked a couple of times. Was sacked once for a big loss there against Minnesota on Saturday. But it sounds like Tim Lester's pretty happy so far with what they've gotten on the offensive side. And, considering where they've been the last couple of years, I think he'd be happy with any sort of progress. But when you've got a top 12, again, the 11th ranked rushing attack in the nation and the nation's leading running back, and the passing offense is at least protecting the ball, I think that's the big thing they're looking for from Cade. Guy started a ton of games in the Big Ten. He's cool, calm, collected in any situation. If he can just be efficient, which we've seen for the most part, and protect the football, I think that's all you really need right now from a team that wants to dominate the trenches. And they're averaging 250 yards a game on the ground. And it's not just Kaleb, but it's Jazz Patterson out there. And we've seen certainly LaShawn Williams when he's healthy, and Kamari Moulton has been there as well. So I think the offense still learning a few things and still getting the hang of this system. But I think Tim is happy with the way things are going. And then on the Phil Parker side, questions about giving up those explosive plays. He defines explosive plays as sometimes anything over 25 yards, but specifically runs of 15 or more, passes of 20 or more. And we've seen a handful of those, and it's strange. And, he talked about, just needing to clean things up and whatnot. As somebody who's watched this team so much and has seen this defense be dominant in a lot of other facets this season, even though there have been more explosive plays, I think Phil said they're 3 plays ahead of where they were this time last year through 4 games after the Penn State game. It doesn't seem like a panic time because they still feel so isolated. Mm-hmm. So I think there is still a ton of optimism about what this defense is doing. They're +5 in turnover margin right now, which is in the top 10 of the country. They ended last year something like tied for 123rd. So they're protecting the ball and they're forcing turnovers, which was an emphasis in the offseason. And then on special teams, I just saw before we got on here, Reese Dakin, who had struggled with a couple of shorter punts against Iowa State to put the Cyclones in really good field position at the end of that game. The flat punt against Troy that got returned for a touchdown. He was fantastic against Minnesota and was just named the Ray Guy Punter of the Week I think he had 5 punts for just under 50 yards a pop. And the only punt that he did have in the second half against Minnesota, he takes a roughing the punter penalty and it gets wiped off. So he technically didn't even punt in the second half. So he's been fantastic. Drew Stevens hasn't missed a kick yet. I think he's, at some point they're going to rely on him for a big kick late. And it's great to see him bounce back from an ending to 23 that I don't think he was too happy about. And, who would be as a competitor. And then a lot of talk about Caden Weegan, out of Williamsburg, because that kid is a block in the back away against Illinois State from having a punt return touchdown. And he's done a lot of other great stuff in the return game. He's so fast. The minute he gets his hands on the ball, you can see him going. And certainly we've seen a lot of good special team stuff as well, aside from the hiccup against Troy. So I think they're just happy to be 4 games in, to have time to rest, evaluate, clean things up, and then get ready for a trip to Columbus in a week.
Great stuff, Mitch. And again, you were at press availability today with the 3 coordinators, LeVar Wood special teams, Phil Parker defense, and Tim Lester offense. And it's great when we're talking about Kaleb Johnson, a co-Big Ten offensive player of the week, by the way. And you mentioned with Reese Aiken being the Ray Guy punter of the week award winner. It's such great stuff going on. So when we talk about Kaleb Johnson, and you said this to me off the air, and I'll bring it on the air because I feel the same way you do, and a lot of Hawkeye fans do. Jordan Canzeri will join us on next week's show, former Hawkeye running back great, and you said it, and I agree that he doesn't always get all the pub that a lot of these other running backs did, but we've heard his name mentioned a lot because those are some of the records and some of the high standards that Jordan set a little over around 10 years ago. Kaleb is now surpassing, along with Sean Green and Tavian Banks and some of the other Hawkeye greats. So Jordan Canzeri will join me next week, and we've had Jordan on the last couple of years, so can't wait to have you viewers check him out with me. And Jordan now head coach back at his alma mater in Troy, New York, high school football coach. So happy for him. Looking forward to catching up with him. Just texted with him today as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, September 24th. And the rest of the program lays out this way with Mitch Fick. We've still got some time with Mitch upcoming yet, but also James Morris, former Hawkeye linebacking great, as well as our sports betting segment this week will be with my production partners at BettorEdge and BettorEdge.com, James Siles and Greg Kieski. So a lot more show coming up. But Mitch, Ohio State, and then after that, UW, Washington. So a lot to play for upcoming in a short period. So rest up, get healthy, and then get right back at it.
Everything that Iowa wants in this season, a shot at a Big Ten title and a shot at a playoff spot. Those are all there. That's kind of the beauty of this expanded playoff field, is that losing a non-conference game, even if it's a tough one to swallow in a game that they had a lead that they typically, the last decade, don't blow leads like that. It's just what happened. That's tip of your cap to the Cardinal and Gold. They were fantastic there in the second half, but everything's still on the table, and it starts in Columbus. And is that the toughest game of the season? Absolutely. That's a team that is more than capable of winning a national title with Will Howard at quarterback and what he walked into coming in from Kansas State, with all the weapons they have on offense there in Columbus, and Chip Kelly calling the plays now. What a fan. Boy, we talk about getting a great offensive coordinator. I know we're really happy with having Tim Lester, but to get a guy like Chip Kelly to bring him in to be the play caller there in Columbus.
Folks, he is Mitch Fick, sports and news anchor at CBS2 and Fox 28. And Mitch, it's always great to catch up with you. Good to see you again. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Looking forward to it, Dave. Thank you.
I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. We'll be back with more in just a few moments.
Hawkeye is brought to you by BettorEdge, your ultimate social betting marketplace. With no VIG, you're bound to win more on every bet on BettorEdge. Founded by Hawkeye alum James Siles and proud Iowan Greg Kieski, BettorEdge delivers an unmatched betting experience. Plus, what's not to love when they're committed to supporting charities and children's hospitals near you? Join the action now. Sign up at BettorEdge.com/Hawkeye and get $10 to start winning more today. BettorEdge, where your social betting means your bets go further and you win more.
Hi, this is Joe Mershman from Mershman Seeds. Substitutions cost you money. Why take their seconds when you can have our first choice? Here's Ben Paper to tell you more about Mershman Power Core Enlist corn.
We are way ahead of Big Seed on this one. This corn has 4 different post-herbicide tolerances, multiple modes of action for above-ground pests, and it is some of the highest yielding corn genetics that are out on the market today.
If you're one of the many that got substituted on your corn hybrid last spring, contact your local Mershman Seeds dealer today and ask them about Power Core Enlist corn. From Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, your CEO buddy James Morris. James, former Hawkeye linebacking great, former NFL player and Super Bowl champion, Mr. Football in Iowa, Gatorade Player of the Year from Solon High School back in his high school days, and now doing very well in the financial services industry in Des Moines with his wife and kids at UBS. So, James, as always, thanks for joining us. And how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Dave. It's good to be back. We got a good little tradition going here.
We do indeed. So I know you're traveling next week, so we're going to have to take a bit of a break until the following week or two, but you're traveling. But Jordan Kanziri going to join me, and that's where I'm going to start. Former Hawkeye running back, great back in your heyday, or a little after your time. It's interesting to see and hear the comparisons between Sean Green and Kaleb Johnson, Jordan Kanziri and Kaleb Johnson, Tavian Banks and Kaleb Johnson. All these former Hawkeye greats, statistical marvels on the field with touchdowns, yards, consecutive 100-yard games. Put your James Morris linebacking hat on from back in the day. What would it be like to tackle that 6 foot, 225 downhill running back who's fast as all get out? What would that be like for you?
It's funny you say that, Dave. I would say of the names you just kind of rattled off, Sean Green is probably the one I would least want to tackle. And he was a guy who definitely moved the pile and he ran with really good body lean. I will say Caleb's doing a great job. He's a good back, and I hope he has a long future. But his game is more speed than power, for sure. And so when you talk about meeting guys in the hole and what have you, I'd throw my hat in the ring. Yeah, that's the classic old guy has-been line. I mean, what'd you think I was going to say?
Knowing you as I do,
he's a really good back. But he is, when you think about the blend of his game, he's 70% speed, 30% power. And they've even talked about, I know Liddell has talked about adding more physicality to his game, running with a little bit more lean. And he's done that. And that's been a huge part of why he's had so much success. So is he a bruiser? No. Is he a game breaker? Yeah, he's got the size and the fifth gear. But I think the most exciting thing about him as a prospect and a talent is he can still get better. I mean, he's got the tangibles to add pass protection, pass reception, and continue to increase the physicality. So I like him as a prospect. Yeah, he's a real talent.
Yeah, and I knew you would answer that way. That's why I kind of teed you up that way. How else would we expect a linebacking great like you'd answer? And you were a former running back great in high school and played on both sides of the ball, so you get it. And that's the thing I would say with Kaleb is, as you mentioned, he's getting a little bit better running towards contact. He wanted out, and he said it himself, he wanted to outrun everybody from his high school days when he got to Iowa, and now he's adding the complete package. And what I love too, James, is he catches the ball out of the backfield, and he can do a lot of things. So it's going to be fun to watch. So as a linebacking great, how do you see the rest of this offense? And I don't want to pick on Cade specifically, but now that you've got the running game down, if you're Iowa and Tim Lester, I would hope that it's time to start moving that ball around the field a little bit. Cade McNamara is, I don't want to say he's a game manager, but lately that's been the cause or been his cause. So I'd like to see you or hear your thoughts on how you think the offense is rolling.
Yeah, I don't know what Kirk and the nutrition staff are doing, if they're giving these guys NyQuil and feeding them turkey pregame or what, but it seems like we only show up for the second half. So first half, we start pretty slow and a little sleepy, but you look at the games where we've won this year, I mean, the physicality from the offense in the second half, and it's like a different team when they come out in the second half. The O-line, they tighten up their splits, they're getting off the ball lower, and they're just road grading teams in the second half. Like I was incredibly impressed with the intensity and the physicality from the offensive line in the second half. The offensive linemen came out and they won that game in the second half. I mean, the holes were massive and they were just rolling them up. So I joke, it's like when you shovel your driveway, and you just start pushing your shovel and the snow starts rolling like that. It just gets bigger and bigger. That was the Minnesota defense on the sled. I mean, they were just plowing them off the driveway. So it was fun to watch. As kind of an old school football fan, I love that. So that's the thing that scares me the most about this offense from a linebacker perspective is our O-line is big and they're athletic. We got a couple of weak points. I'm not going to go into detail on that. But you look at the way those guys are playing right now, I mean, it's impressive. For Bo Stevens not being a pass blocker, like that's not a guy you want to get in front of in the run game. That dude's an absolute road grader.
Yeah, and you've mentioned this before about the line and what a great job they're doing, and I appreciate you mentioning that. So when we take a look, and I'm going to have you talk about two things before we have you go here, so less of me and more of you is always a good thing, your experience. What were your thoughts about how the defense adjusted with Phil Parker and over the top? We talked about it last week, getting beat deep, and they bent quite a bit in that first half, but shored up in the second half, gave up 14 points, came out, we're down 14-7 at halftime, as you mentioned, then come back with a 24-0 showing and won 31-14 at Minnesota, getting Floyd of Burrowsdale back in Iowa. What were your thoughts on the defense this game?
Dave, that's a great question. I think if you look at the first half, it was really interesting. You look at where the safeties for Iowa were playing. I would say they were playing 3 to 5 yards deeper than they usually do, and they were giving a ton of respect and extra cushion. And so you saw the Minnesota quarterback take advantage of it. And so there were 2 or 3 kind of chunk completions, 15, 20 yards down the field, where he was hitting that soft spot on the sideline. So think about it as the space, the gap between the corner and the safety, that little pocket. Because the safeties were deeper, they couldn't close that space. So that's where the holes were because they were playing deeper. And then I give Minnesota's quarterback a lot of credit in the first half. I thought he played absolutely lights out. The guy played out of his mind. He was finding the right reads, making through his projection, going through his progressions, and then putting the ball on the money, making the right read. So he played maybe the best half of football in his life. I don't know. I haven't scouted him over his career, but I said, if this guy stays hot like this, like we're going to have a problem, because people were complaining about the rush and not getting a rush. I'm like, we were sending 4 guys and they were within a hair, within a reach, within 3.5 seconds. I thought the rush was fine. This guy was just getting through his reads so quickly, and it was great quarterback play. I don't want to say like Aaron Rodgers, but you can do everything right, and Aaron Rodgers is still going to carve you up if he's getting to his 4th and his 5th read within 3 seconds. So I thought the defense played okay, and they really tightened the screws in the second half. But I got to tip my cap to Minnesota.
Yeah, Brosmer looked good. Max Brosmer, quarterback, as you mentioned, transfer in from New Hampshire, but he's experienced. I believe this is his 6th year. So with the COVID year and everything else, and redshirt,
he's an old guy, so he got tired in the second half.
That's,
we can identify with that. And so he mean reverted in the second half. That's all these 6-year players. You know, they're ready for a beer at the end of the 3 quarters.
That's what got him. You're well stated, James. Who better than you today? James Morris, former Hawkeye linebacking great. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Safe travel. And as always, James, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Yep. Always a pleasure, Dave. See you.
Likewise, and same here. So thanks again to James Morris. We'll be back with more to close out Hawkeye with James Siles and Greg Kajewski, my broadcast partners and production partners at BettorEdge and BettorEdge.com. Talking some sports betting. Back with more Hawkeye to close out the show in just a few moments. Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you see my production partners, my buddies, Greg Kajewski and James Siles with at BettorEdge via social media or BettorEdge.com. James, we got to get to it right away. So much excitement, so much to talk about. Iowa, Minnesota. You're an Iowa alum. So let's talk about first what a rivalry it's become for Minnesota, Iowa. And secondly, what it's done for your business at BettorEdge and BettorEdge.com. Let's talk about that, please, James. And thanks for joining us. It's always good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Dave. Yeah, it's I guess I can give you from my perspective. You know, I'm from Western Iowa, so you know, when I was in Western Iowa, grew up, you know, watching the Iowa State rivalry. We didn't have the Iowa-Nebraska rivalry going on while I was there. And so after college, I moved up to Minneapolis, and, you know, I really see how much Minnesota fans want to beat Iowa. And, you know, even though we've won, I think 7 of the last 8 years or something like that, it still feels like it's always that game that, you know, you just want to win more than any on your schedule, you know, especially coming off the Iowa State loss this year. Like this one was not only from the team's perspective of you got to win this to stay, you know, above 500 going up to Ohio State and then potentially going under 500, but also just from the rivalry standpoint. I think, you know, since PJ Fleck took the job 8 years ago, I think there's a lot of more similarities amongst the teams and how they operate, both offensively and defensively. And so you see these games always coming down to, you know, one possession most of the years, and that just adds to the rivalry here. I think, you know, another thing too with Minneapolis that I don't know if a lot of people realize is it's a huge transplant state for folks from Iowa, and especially at the University of Iowa. You know, I graduated with accounting, and you really have a couple of options if you want to go, you know, to a larger metropolitan area to find a job. And it's either you go to Chicago or really Minneapolis, and, you know, some people out to Denver, but we have so many alumni here that it really creates sort of almost an in-state rivalry feel. You go down to the bars and stuff. And at this point, I think there's 3 Hawkeye bars just in downtown Minneapolis because we have so many people here in town. And so it really creates a huge rivalry, and it adds to the banter every year. And, you know, every year that PJ stays here, it adds to the rivalry, not just with the team itself, but with the coaches, and, you know, there's some history there. And so it's a lot of fun every year, and I'm just happy to be on the right side of it this year.
But Greg, for you, what has it done for the company on a broader sense, not just the Iowa-Minnesota game, but sports betting in general?
Yeah, great question. And, BettorEdge being a no vig platform that connects users for sports betting, ultimately there's just a ton of excitement around what we're doing.
Greg, real quick for the uninitiated, no vig meaning no tax, no juice, no 10% to the bookie or to the agency or to the casino, 10, 11%. Continue. For the uninitiated, I wanted to explain no vig. So go ahead, please.
Yep. No house. So you're connecting Minnesotans against Iowans that are betting against each other, and they take home more money. So thanks to support of a lot of our partners, including, Hawkeyed, a lot of people are hearing about BettorEdge and absolutely loving it. So we saw almost 100% growth year over year from last year to this year for the Minnesota-Iowa game alone, which you talked a little bit about being early in the year. We're always used to that game being late in the season. So excited to take the success we've had thus far and continue to watch that grow as the football season goes on.
How is baseball or WNBA, how have these things played out in a broader sense? I got to believe everything is on the rise right now because the interest just seems to be off the charts for sports betting.
Absolutely. Playoff baseball is a great time to jump in, as well as WNBA. Seeing Caitlin get into the WNBA has done wonders for the WNBA, but also for our platform and individuals interested in betting there as well. So we've loved, the rising tide that lifts all boats, and we'll continue to see that as the season goes on.
I got to believe for you guys, NHL and NBA upcoming is just going to exacerbate, jettison you guys into the stratosphere here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that first week of October, whenever it is, where they're all playing. That's always the real test on the platform to make sure we can handle not only the volume of betting, but just the number of updates.
What a pleasant problem to have. Oh, boo, James. What a pleasant problem to have.
No, but you mentioned it. We're in Minnesota, the home of hockey, I would say, here in the U.S. And one crazy thing, I'd have to look at the numbers again for, last year, but I think overall the industry sees, it's definitely, under 5%, like 3% of their volume is related to NHL. And, we hit close to 10, 12% of our volume is on NHL, just given the fact that, we are Minnesota based. A lot of our users, at least our early users, were Minnesota based. And so there's a lot of interest on hockey. And so we definitely enjoy, when hockey comes around. Hopefully our Minnesota Wild are a little better than they're expected to be this year. I know there's some contract stuff going on, but yeah, we're excited for NHL, excited for the NBA. With every league, it's that first few weeks, there's, a ton of excitement, even though there's 82 games during the year. You get those first couple of weeks where people are jacked about their teams coming back and playing, and then you might see a lull once you start hitting, before Christmas. Christmas adds a little bonus, and then a little lull after that. But like you said, then we get playoff baseball in October, and so there's nothing more exciting than October baseball, and it translates into the betting markets too.
Amen to that. And the Twins are hanging around the wild card again as we record this on Tuesday afternoon. I have to keep time. There you go. I have to keep time stamping this, because so much happens in such a fluid situation. The Twins right now, depending what day you're looking, the Twins are a game back as of today from the wild card, third and final spot. And the Mariners are a game and a half or two, depending, again, what day and time you look. But it is coming down. Royals and who'd have thunk it? The Royals and, sorry for the improper English, but for effect, with the Royals and Tigers tied for the second and third spot in the wild card. So fun stuff coming down the stretch with all these Midwest smaller market teams, as we talk about, with the exception of Seattle, obviously. So, Greg, let's close out with you and talk about this with no house or no vig, the charitable work you guys do. So the consumer in me, or, the businessman and everybody, or business person watching this thinks, okay, you guys aren't charging a vig or a percentage or a house fee, a casino or a sports book fee. Where's that money going? And you guys are wonderful with charities. So I know you guys are too humble to talk about it, so I got to tee you up. Talk about some of the fantastic charitable work you guys do, please, Greg.
Yeah, appreciate it. And so when we started the company, we wanted to do well for the community. And so right away we said, hey, if you're betting $100 on the Hawkeyes and somebody else is betting 100 on Ohio State, you're saving, 5-10% on that particular bet, which amounts to be $10, $20. And so ultimately we want to be able to give you the opportunity to donate that back to our charity partners. We've donated to the Children's Hospital, Give 16 with Jason Zucker, and a lot of other organizations and good charitable causes to help put money back into great places. So excited to continue to grow that and scale that across the US, but it's a really fun way to have fun with sports betting while doing good as well.
That's wonderful stuff. So Greg Kajewski, I'll say thank you to you first, then we'll go to James so everybody can see each one of you one more time on the screen again. Greg Kajewski, a Northeast Iowa native, and now in Minneapolis at BettorEdge and BettorEdge.com. Greg, thank you so much. Great seeing you again.
Thank you much.
Truly my pleasure. James Siles, my production partners, you and Greg from BettorEdge.com and at BettorEdge. James, thank you so much, my friend. Iowa alumni, Northwest Iowa native, but most importantly, U of I alum. Thanks so much, James. Good to see you again, my friend.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you so much.
Truly my pleasure. So for Greg Kajewski, James Siles, James Morris, and Mitch Fick. And to you, the viewers, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. That's all from us. Thanks to all of you.